Welcome to the Retirement Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Greg Gonzalez. My goal for the podcast is to help you live a better life in retirement by giving you the tools and information you need in a language that you can understand. I'm a retirement planner in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am lucky enough to have clients in 17 different states, and I try to help them all plan for a successful retirement. What I have found in my career is that every family is different. We come from different backgrounds with different values and family dynamics. We have different education backgrounds and different political views, and we all have different lifelong goals. And one thing that shocks me is that people don't spend a lot of time thinking about their legacy and how they want to impact others when they're no longer on this earth. Before we get into today's content, I wanted to remind listeners to check out our website, which is retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. That's retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. You can check out our website. You can listen to previous episodes. You can send me your questions at the bottom of the website. It'll say, Ask Greg a Question. I'd be happy to help you any way I can. And then you can also download our free resources, such as our 2020 tax planning guide, as well as my retirement secret sauce. You can download those right there on the website. Again, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. It's a mouthful, but it's worth your time to check that out. I think my clients are very surprised and possibly caught off guard when I ask them about their legacy and their beneficiary planning, which really means how they want to be remembered when they're dead and gone, and who they want to bless financially when they're no longer on this earth. What organization or individuals are important to them, so much so that they want to include them in their estate plans. Now, this is the missing piece in somebody's retirement plan, and I think just because it's such a difficult conversation to have with somebody, because, yeah, it might be morbid to think about, nobody wants to think about death or dying or not being here. But in reality, nobody has an expiration date on their birth certificate. But if you're like most people, you've worked hard for everything that you have and have been able to save or invest for your home, all your assets. You didn't get all that by accident. So it just makes sense. If you spent your entire life working for everything that you have, at least spend some time now planning for a positive and beautiful legacy. Because if you don't, it could end up being a nightmare for your family or loved ones or whomever it is. And I don't mean just when you're not here, but also I encourage you to speak with your financial planner and have that conversation of how you want to bless in whatever way possible your family, loved ones, ministry, while you're living the best years in your retirement. I'll share a personal story of my grandparents, and they always said later on in life that they would have loved to have been able to pay for their 6 grandsons' college educations. That just would have been so meaningful to them. But they never had that conversation with their financial planner. So that goal was never addressed. And quite frankly, they were in a great position to be able to help with all 6 of the grandsons' college education. In fact, they could have paid for all of their college education across the board, but they never started to have that conversation to put it into place. And so, quite frankly, of the 6 grandchildren that went to college, 4 of them came out in very, very high student loan debt. And the other 2 didn't even get a college education. So that was kind of a sad story, or something they always kind of regretted, because later on in life, obviously, I became their financial planner. And I told them, hey, I wish I would have been in this position way back when, but I was one of the grandchildren. So I know that's kind of a sad story, but in my eyes, it's even more sad because somebody's legacy, my grandparents in this example, their legacy wasn't able to be realized when it could have been with proper planning. But I will say their legacy does live on in the fact that we all learned core values from both of my grandparents, such as hard work and treating everybody with respect. But if one of your goals is to maybe help pay for your grandchildren's college education. And that just happens to be a great goal. It's very appealing to me. I think a college education is one of the best gifts you can ever give somebody. But if that's the case, then you need to have your retirement plan, your financial plan, account for that. And really, if that's one of your primary goals, your estate plan can even account for that to make sure that whether you're living or not, that those dreams, that legacy can be carried out. And that might be through a trust or some other means, but your goals may be different. You may be one of the leaders at your church, and ministry and giving is an important value to you and your family and the legacy that you leave. So you may decide that your beneficiary plan, your estate plan, includes that some funds from your IRA or 401k are left to a local church, your local church. And so the pre-tax dollars that are in that IRA or 401k, the taxes don't have to be paid on that retirement account if it's left to a nonprofit like your local church. I'm making this up as I go, but you get the point. But I will say, by and large, one of the most interesting conversations I have with clients and with folks when they're planning their estate plan, their legacy plan, is how they leave money to their children. And it can be very interesting and dynamic when it's blended families, when maybe the wife has children from a previous marriage and the husband has children from a previous marriage, because sometimes people want to be fair to each adult child. Or maybe there's grandchildren and you want to make sure grandchildren are taken care of and accounted for. Maybe a trust comes into play. But what I find over and over is that people do want to be fair to their children. They love them all the same, and they want everybody to get their piece of the pie and be happy. And they want anything that they leave to them to be a blessing on their lives. Where it gets interesting is in situations where maybe an adult child owes you money and you want to account for that in your estate plan. I've even had clients say to me that their two oldest daughters got married and they paid for a $20,000 wedding, but their youngest daughter hasn't gotten married yet. So if something were to happen to mom and dad, they want to make sure $20,000 is there for the youngest daughter's wedding. It's something that I hadn't thought of until that meeting, but it was important to them. I even had one client that said he had 3 sons and he paid for his oldest son's college education, and the middle son and the youngest son decided not to go to college. And this was a very expensive college education, mind you, from the oldest son. It was roughly $50,000. So he wanted to later on in life give the middle son and the youngest son a $50,000 lump sum check. Now that may sound ridiculous to you. The deal was, hey, I will pay for college, but you've got to do the work to get the degree. And if the middle son and youngest son decided they didn't want to do the coursework to finish the degree, then the offer's off the table. Well, in his mind, later on in life, again, he always wanted all 3 sons to have a college education, but he thought that somehow the middle son and the youngest son were shorted out because this $50,000 was not in their hands to get the degrees. And in some sense, he felt guilty. So later on in life, he made that $50,000 lump sum available to his 2 younger sons. We even had an instance where mom and dad had a son and a daughter, and they had given a loan to the son, and the loan was never paid back. It was never paid back. The son wasn't in the position to ever pay it back. So they forgave the loan, and they decided, to be fair, they would just gift the daughter the same amount of the loan. It was a small loan. It was $10,000, but they wanted to be fair. So there's all kinds of different situations that are going to impact how you leave your legacy, how you do your beneficiary planning, because every family out there is different. Imagine you and your spouse have a vacation property and you have a son and a daughter. Your daughter is very interested in owning that. Should something happen to you, your daughter would love to own that vacation property because all the memories that were made there throughout her life. But your son has no interest in that vacation property at all. So how do you make that fair? How do you leave an asset like real estate to your daughter but also make it fair so you would have to leave some kind of equivalent asset to your son. That's something that you and your spouse could address in a trust to make sure that your plan was both fair for your son and daughter. But unless you think about it ahead of time, it's something that you probably would have never considered. But I know that's something that we don't want to have to plan for. And we don't want to even think about the thought of a short-lived retirement. But by taking charge and having that conversation, you're tying up all the loose ends. And really, you're making sure the pieces of the puzzle go where you want them to, instead of, as the old saying goes, just let the chips fall as they may. And believe me, I have seen the worst estate plans. I have had clients that have had to fight with probate court for years. And unfortunately, when they think of their parents, they think about all the battles with probate court and all the hell they had to go through because of the poor planning that their parents had done, or in some cases, lack of planning at all. But I will say, when your legacy planning is well thought out, is well constructed with your financial planner and your estate attorney, it can be a beautiful thing. Many of the clients that we work with would like any money they leave to their children to be protected from future things such as liability lawsuits and creditors and things like that. We call it bulletproofing the money we leave our children. Some of our clients will even go as far as setting up a graduated distribution of their assets, so once they're gone, their children don't receive a lump sum of money. Imagine leaving $500,000 to both your son and daughter when they're in their early 20s or late 20s, and they may not have the responsibility or the means to manage that properly and wisely. So setting up a graduated distribution that pays over years and years kind of protects your children from themselves. Think of all the lottery winners that won it big, and they got that big lump sum check, and within a year or two, it was all squandered away. For some people, inheritances can be just like that. Think about it. It's money they're not used to having, and they think, gosh, now that I have this, maybe it's an account like a retirement account or something, or maybe it's cash. They think, okay, gosh, I got to do something with it. And quite frankly, this can be really, really dangerous. So you've got to think about your own children or your own beneficiaries, and not only what they might do with any inheritance they receive, but also what are your goals? What would you have liked to see the money or the assets do to improve or enhance their lives? I can tell you, as a financial planner, I have experienced many people who have inherited money. Some make very wise decisions and they take my counsel seriously, while others have not listened to counsel and made very, very terrible, awful decisions with the assets that they inherit. There's a funny story that I thought I would share. I even have a client who has a trust set up that has very detailed instructions about how the funds in the trust can be used to benefit his two sons. It can be used to pay off their mortgages and any other debt that they have. But not only that, the funds have to be sent directly to the lender or creditor. And then aside from that, the trust spells out that lump sums will be paid to his two sons upon their 35th birthday and 40th birthday and so on. So as you can see, this is a conversation that you and your spouse or family need to have. And really, you need to put some thought into what you want your legacy to look like and make sure you have the proper documents, estate planning documents, and everything's ironed out. Because really, the risks of not doing the proper planning is you wind up with a legacy that's not lived out. And there's people out there that can help you make the smart choices now, so you make a positive difference and impact on the lives of your family and loved ones. And another thing, the plans that you do, the planning that you do, it might change over time, and that's okay. But you want to have this well thought out ahead of time so that in case of the unthinkable, you're all set up and your wishes will be carried out smoothly and seamlessly. If I have learned anything from our clients over the years, it's that they want to be fair to their children, but not only that, They want to leave a legacy, but they don't want to ruin their kids' lives. And you can do all of that by just a little planning, and then you'll be in great shape. I hope this conversation has been helpful to you. I know some of these examples that I gave may or may not be similar to your own family and goals that you might have, but they're food for thought, if nothing else, and how other people are doing planning and the conversations and thought that goes into the planning stage of planning a positive legacy that you may want to leave behind. Remember, with a little planning, everything will fall into place just as you imagined. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Retirement Made Easy podcast. You can check out my website, send me your questions, your emails. Check out the website, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com, retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. I'm Greg Gonzalez. I'll catch you next time, and remember, always dream big. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, please consult your attorney, tax advisor, or financial advisor prior to investing. This is a hypothetical example and is not representative of any specific investment. Your results may vary. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices mentioned are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. The SmartVestor program is a directory of investment professionals. Neither Dave Ramsey nor SmartVestor are affiliates of St. Louis Retirement Advisors or LPL Financial. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.